It wouldn't be Yu-Gi-Oh! Unless I was pissing somebody off, right? What's going on YouTube? Super Insane 18 here, and even though it is not quite December, we are just a couple of days away, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a top 5 meta decks for the December 2021 format, and some of these picks are going to be rather controversial, not necessarily the picks themselves, but the place that I am ranking them, so let's go ahead and jump on in. Coming in at number 5, we are going to have Virtual World. Now, this is a deck that I still cannot entirely wrap my head around, maybe because there's really only one person that plays it in our local area and I haven't gone against it too much, but the build that I am going to show you guys is one that claims to have gone 8-0 at a tournament, which is pretty good, being able to go undefeated for 8 rounds, and I know that the deck is good, I'm just not really sure why. I know that they can just spam out Crystal Wing really easily, as well as other power synchros. I know that they can make relatively easy Zeus, and it really just, I don't know, I'm not really sure how this deck works, but I know that it is good, so that's why it has to take our number 5 slot. And for the first controversial pick, coming in at number 4, we actually have Sword Soul. Now, a lot of people are probably expecting that Sword Soul would have been a lot higher on this list, but I'm going to be honest with you guys, I really don't think the deck is that good. There are 2 different variants, so I will show you both. The first one here we have is a Tenyi variant, and then the second variant that I am going to show you guys is more of a pure variant with the Fusion Destiny for the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Personally, I think that version is just a little bit better, but I know people do think that the Tenyi version is better. I've tried both variants and haven't really had much success. I just think that none of their cards are really good on their own. You need something else for each card to be able to actually function. You need either a Sword Soul or another Worm. Not a single one of their cards does anything on its own, and inherently that just makes it a little bit inconsistent. Plus, the end boards that they make aren't really all that threatening. Unless you open the absolute nuts and get everything you need, you're usually only going to have maybe 2 interruptions at best. I mean, yeah, you can have more if you open up absolutely insane. You can go into Chi-Zhao, Baron, with your Blackout, maybe some hand traps or like Imperm or Chalice or whatever, but that just requires you to open way too many cards for it to be consistently good, and I just really don't think that it deserves any higher than the number 4 slot. Coming in at number 3, we do have Drytron. Now, if you've seen my past top meta videos before, you know that Drytron normally takes the 2nd slot. Here we actually had to bump it down a little bit, just because there are some other things that can do a little bit better more consistently. Now, there are 2 variants of Drytron that people are playing. There is the original Herald of Ultimateness build, which is the one that I was originally playing, but then we also have this new build that I'm going to show you, which is, I mean, it's not really new, but it's using the pre-prep and the Herald of Perfection just to kind of make it a little bit more consistent. The fact that you'll be able to not only get both of your Ritual and Ritual Spell, but be able to recycle the Ben 10 for multiple uses relatively easy, it just makes it more consistent than the Herald of Ultimateness version, and I mean, when you're staring down 5 Omni Negates, there really isn't much that a deck can do, but it is very susceptible to hand traps, which is why it's only number 3 on the list. It's very good, it could be better, but it's still definitely a big threat that you need to worry about. Our number 2 deck is going to be Fluondries, and a lot of people are also probably going to be mad about this pick. I've seen pretty much a 50-50 divide in the community whether or not this deck is insane or whether it's just bad, and personally I'm on the side of it being insane. And that might be a little bit biased because I have been going undefeated regularly at my locals with this deck, but I just think that the deck is incredibly oppressive. There are 2 variants that you can play. The first variant is a pure variant, which can benefit off running one of the most oppressive hand traps, being Dimension Shifter, and the second variant is my preferred variant, which is a Dogmatica variant. I think that the Dogmatica variant is just a little bit more consistent, but the fact that this deck can just spam out the barrier statue with ways to either just get rid of your normal summon entirely by spinning it back or putting it face down with the trap or Book of Moon if you are playing it, leaving you locked under that barrier statue with no way out, plus you have the Omni Negate in Avion, and a skill drain on legs with Empin. The deck is consistent, the deck is just oppressive, and I really think that this deserves the 2nd slot in the top 5 meta decks. Now, before we show you guys our number 1 pick, there is an honorable mention, and that is actually going to be Phantom Knights. A lot of people who are mad with me that I put Phantom Knights in the sleeper decks, but I mean, anything that doesn't make the top 5 has to be sleeper, right? It was number 1 in our sleeper decks video, and it is definitely a very good and consistent deck, putting up very threatening boards that you definitely need to be prepared for. If you're not, you're just gonna flat out lose, and I mean, who wants to lose? So for our honorable mention, Phantom Knights is definitely a very good deck, unfortunately just not quite in the top 5. And if you didn't already guess it, our number 1 slot has to go to Lyrilusc Tri-Brigade. Now, this is a deck that I actually think is really cool, because we went from playing a Tri-Brigade deck with a small Lyrilusc package to a Lyrilusc deck with a small Tri-Brigade package. The fact that you can just put out the Utopic Future Dragon before you even go into any sort of Tri-Brigade plays, making sure that you can't lose to a card such as Nibiru is honestly just really cool in my opinion. Not to mention the fact that the Lyriluscs, even past the F-Zero, can still spam out other rank 1s like the Ensemble Robin, which, I mean, if you pair that with something like an Avion or a Barrier Statue or, you know, it really doesn't matter what you pair it with, you'll be able to just bounce 5 of your opponent's special summons, and that's just wild. Not to mention that you can potentially end that with an Appaloosa as well, or a double Dragon Lords. The deck is very consistent and can just, for almost free, put up an absolutely crazy board that most decks cannot deal with. Not to mention, since they are the winged beasts, you can run something like the Harpy's Featherstorm, just turning off all effects that your opponent can use for an entire turn for almost free. And if you are playing a variant that plays the Harpy Conductor in the extra deck, you can also even activate that from your hand. So, I mean, it just, I don't know, I think that the deck is definitely the best deck of the format. There is so much it can do, such a high ceiling, it does not just flat out lose to hand traps, and I think that is pretty much the recipe for a best deck of the format, just being able to power through whatever your opponent is going to throw at you, still set up your board, and just look at them and dare them to break it. And there you guys have it, that is going to be my top 5 meta decks for the December 2021 format. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know that I enjoyed making this video. It's definitely exciting to see that there are 2 new decks in this, because we've kind of been in a bit of a stale format up to this point. Now that we have Sword Soul and Fluondries in the mix, I think it does kind of shake things up a little bit to a kind of a better place where the game can just function without getting boring. So hopefully you guys did like it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. For just $1, you can help the channel in ways that I would never be able to tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.